in. People probably still will be joining, or they'll hear the recording. So anyway, last week, I want to cover a little bit what we did last week, because I think it was confusing in some ways to some folks. And Lakshman, welcome. And so in his Shikshastakam, his 8 instructive verses, Lord Chaitanya, he zeroes in on the biggest obstacle that we have in progressing in our Krishna consciousness. And he actually says that if we overcome this particular obstacle, that attaining love of Godhead is quite easy. And so if you look at how the path of bhakti develops, if we can attain these certain qualities of humility, tolerance, and respect, and a lack of desire for respect for ourselves, that puts us in a situation where the progress is kind of downhill. While we're stuck in our current condition, everything seems to be uphill, it seems to be difficult. But once these things are done, once we beat this one terrible obstacle, this one terrible block to our progress, then it's more like going downhill. It kind of begins to build on itself. Our ability to be focused on Krishna, to appreciate him and to reciprocate with him just kind of increases. And our connection deepens, and it just keeps increasing. It becomes kind of a vicious upward cycle. So Lord Chaitanya, he really focuses on this particular obstacle. And so he mentions that in the first 2 verses of the Shikshastakam, how even though Krishna is giving us something so mind-blowingly valuable and wonderful, and just doing it for free. He's not saying, oh, you're some specific, specially deserving person, I give it to you. No. He's giving it to everybody who will accept it. And we could not have the qualifications for receiving it. It's too wonderful of a gift. There's no deserving. It's priceless. And he's just doing it. Here you take it. Here you take it. Here's the holy name filled with my energies. And it says that we have this tremendous, it's tremendous mercy on his part that he's done this for us. But because we have this one huge obstacle, hard-heartedness, our hearts are either hard like steel or like stone. This ashma sara means like stone or like iron. And so even though we've been given something unimaginably wonderful for free, we just kind of, we take it like that's natural. We don't get excited about it. Well, it's nice, and I've got all these other things going on, and this is nice also. So there's a hard-heartedness that causes a lack of gratitude. That's the lacking. But when we're hard-hearted, then we're not grateful for things. We think somehow we deserve it. Somehow why shouldn't we have it? Yeah, no big deal. Here, give it to me, Krishna. Give me the most wonderful thing in the world. I'll take it. But without much gratitude. He says, this is this big obstacle that blocks our path, the love of God, that blocks our path to spiritual growth. And then in the next verse, he details the transformation that has to take place, with that, focusing on this gratitude that will allow us to help to open the heart, to remove the hard-heartedness, and to actually put ourselves in position where we can move forward quite easily on the path of devotional service. And without this, there's no other way. Right? If the heart remains hard, whatever else we do is going to have insufficient effect to make us really grow. It may have some effect, but it'll have insufficient effect. So if we realize, right, that we've been offered something that is so valuable, we could not even imagine having such a thing. We didn't even know such a thing could exist. We talked about this divine love where the soul overflows, and we have this full-hearted love of Krishna, which is just mind-boggling. And Krishna's welcoming us into his personal space. This is amazing. Right? So this is something that we could never earn. It's something we can never repay or reciprocate. It's too valuable. Even our greatest efforts, it's like, somebody gives us $10 trillion and we give them, $1 million back. It's nothing. It's insufficient reciprocation. So if we open our hearts to gratitude, realizing what we've been offered and how we do not deserve it and could not deserve it, will not deserve it, but it's been given out of the goodness of Krishna's heart, then we should be touched and we should be humbled. And the humbled means, in this case, it's not humiliation, right? It's a feeling of a wonderful feeling where you feel very small because you've been given something you don't deserve that is so incredible. And there's no way you can do it, but it's been given to you freely from Krishna's heart. So you feel wonderful, but you feel very small. It's a delightful feeling of smallness. You feel lower than the grass. There's no way I could have deserved this. There's no way I can pay it back, but I have it. So it's a tremendous ecstasy. And then the second thing happens, so we feel ourselves quite small and insignificant in our ability to reciprocate with Krishna. The second thing that happens is that we still want to reciprocate with him to our full capacity. Right? Because naturally where there's gratitude, right, there is a desire for reciprocation. Now, I know I can't ever do something for Krishna that is equal to this, that pays back the debt of gratitude, but I'm eager to do whatever little I can. I'm eager. And so this is why there's that nanaragaha, see? That lack of attachment for the name, because we're not feeling that. We're not humbled, and we're not feeling that desire to do something back, even though we can never, ever even make a dent in our debt of gratitude. But it becomes we become enthusiastic to do it. And it says that in Krishna, even though our effort is small compared to what we've received, is touched by that effort, and then he helps us to grow. Right? He is touched by that, and out of his kindness, he helps us to overcome the various obstacles that we have. That's how it happens. So sometimes we have this, we talk about this difference between mercy and effort. And we had some, maybe some difficulty with that. If we're depending on Krishna's mercy, we don't do anything, people will think, right? But no, humility makes us want to do something in return. It's natural. The difference between what we usually think of as an effort is effort that comes not from humility. So if we strive in our practice, like even very vigorously, without the humble attitude, see, what will happen is we'll eventually increase our pride, and we will take credit for our growth. We will think in these ridiculous terms that I'm earning and deserving something by my effort. Right? So effort is there, but it's part of the humility. It's part of the gratitude. It's a natural thing. You want to do something back. It's not that now I've been given this gift of the holy name. I've been given this practice of Krishna consciousness. Now I'm really going to do it. Right? And then I'm going to earn my advancement. It's going to happen to myself. This becomes egoistic again. We're becoming prideful. So our effort has to somehow be connected with the humility and the feeling of indebtedness and the realization that whatever we do is insignificant compared to what we've received. And the advancement that we make in Krishna consciousness comes primarily from Krishna's mercy. that we're doing actually very, very little compared to what we've received, even if we're doing everything we possibly can. That means, so it can be very intense activity, and of course, if persons who are very advanced in Krishna consciousness, their service is very intense, but it's of this humble nature. So our effort, our so we ask us, don't we plan? Can't we try to try to improve ourselves? Yes, we do that naturally, but it has to be connected with this feeling of indebtedness and humility. Otherwise, it becomes an article of pride. Yeah, I'm doing as much as other people are doing. I'm doing more than other people are doing. I must be doing okay. I'm doing better than this person, so I must be better. This kind of stuff comes out. Yes, Krishna, I've done all this service for you. Now you're obliged to me. We'll think that way. We do think that way. This is our pride. It's so horrific. So we have to realize that we have to have that gratitude that we've received something invaluable that we can't reciprocate. We're hugely fortunate debtors, and we should try to reciprocate that. So we don't access this quality, and if we don't go back and try to look at it and realize what we've received, realize that we couldn't deserve it, realize that then we'll constantly beat our head against this wall in our practice. We'll be fighting against this nanuragaha, because the hard-heartedness just says, oh, how much do I have to do? This is really kind of hard. I don't feel like it. What are all the requirements? Or I'm doing all this and doing all this and doing all this. Yeah, I'm really doing great. We'll be stuck on this hard-hearted, egoistic platform that will not allow our hearts to become open and will not allow bhakti to flow. We're just cutting it off. So this is a very simple verse, this third verse at Shikshastakam, but it gives really everything that we need to move forward. Lord Chaitanya says, when he recites it afterwards, he says, if people have these qualities given in this verse, it's very easy for them to awaken their love of God. That's his own meditation. And if not, it's not going to happen. We're going to be stuck in the quagmire. So gratitude simultaneously humbles us and inspires us to vigorous but humble action. There's an urgent desire to reciprocate. When we don't have that urgent desire, it means we're not humble enough. We have to try to access that humility, that gratitude. So that's the first part, lower than the grass, right? This feeling of humility that brings out this also urgent desire for the gratitude that causes us to be humble, feeling ourselves as eternal debtors, feeling tremendous appreciation and gratitude, and a desire to reciprocate. That's the first step. And then it comes something more difficult. Each step here in this verse of the Shikshastakam increases in difficulty. As the second one, it says, one should become more tolerant than a tree. So, and it was mentioned how the trees, they give fruit and they give shade and shelter. Sometimes people cut them down. They have to stand out in all weather, so they tolerate all kinds of circumstances. So we have to become more tolerant in the tree. We may, in our lives or in our Krishna consciousness, we may have obstacles that happen to us. I heard a lecture one time where Prabhupada was saying, that the devotees, would go out and chant in the streets, or they would sell books, and sometimes they would be attacked or even arrested. And he says that they tolerated that because of their desire to serve Krishna. Otherwise, things may happen in our lives. We may suffer different kinds of reversals in our lives. And our thought, of course, is that if we're connected with Krishna, Krishna is going to save us from all these things. And that may cause us to have a crisis of faith. What happens when we face difficult times, difficult circumstances, either in our service or just in our lives? What do we do then? And so most of the time, I think when we hear about the more tolerant than a tree, we think that we're going to become very tough then. We have to toughen ourselves up so that we can withstand anything and continue. Nothing will affect us. I will continue to simply move forward. That's a mistake. I will tell you that's a terrible mistake to make. And even if you listen to how the trees are described, you can see that the trees are kind. It says that even if somebody's trying to cut them down, or if they're drying up, they don't ask anybody for water. If somebody's trying to cut them down, they still offer shade and their fruits. You can see that the trees have some heart. If you look at it that way, there's not just that they're so tough and powerful. If we try to become tough and powerful, this is an egoistic thing again, isn't it? I am powerful. I will resist everything. I am transcendental. Okay? I language. And I language is usually a scary thing. Pride is there. So when difficulties come, what it really is, remember, we're trying to open our hearts, not close them. And somebody who is tolerant through strength, right, is closing the heart. They're toughening themselves up. They don't want to feel what they're feeling. They don't want to feel the circumstances. They're just going to carry out, it's like military, it's a military thing. Becoming tougher. This is closing the heart. So we realize that bhakti is an open-hearted thing. And our path on bhakti is to open the heart, not to close the heart, not to wall off the heart, not to become strong and powerful, but to become humble and more open-hearted. So the difficult things that happen to us, either in our lives or in our service, are invitations and opportunities to open the heart more. So we may feel grateful to Krishna as long as things are going well. We may begin to feel some gratitude and happiness. But what happens when Krishna doesn't protect us for something? We have some reversal. And we think, well, Krishna, you're really not upholding your end of the bargain here. You're kind of supposed to smooth my path, so things will be easy for me, right? You love me. We're connected, right? You're supposed to smooth everything, and now I've got a problem. Have you ever heard the term a fair weather friend? Right? And so when something happens, there's a calling here to open our hearts to Krishna, to trust him even more, to trust that he knows what he's doing. An invitation to believe that whatever is happening is to our ultimate good. And that it can be helpful to us to open our heart even further in our relationship with Krishna and in general. Coming in contact with these things can give us a chance to crack the heart open and have more empathy for others and have more, in real relationships, sometimes we have to deal with things that are unpleasant. And then, and if those relationships aren't shallow, then we'll open our hearts and we'll embrace even those negative things. That's what we do. So that we're being invited by Krishna to open our hearts. Say, yes, Krishna, this is happening. You're allowing this to happen, but I believe that you're still are my greatest well-wisher. And so I'm going to open my heart to this. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam that talks about that, where whatever happens, right, I simply bow down to you at the core of my heart. So this takes an opening of the heart, not a closing of the heart. So if we close, we'll still keep resentment. So he says, okay, Krishna, I have faith in you and confidence in you that you are my greatest well-wisher. You know what's best for me ultimately. Right? We do things all the time with a greater goal in mind that aren't always pleasant. Even we do this for ourselves. Maybe we had to study, to be able to get a certain position in the world. Maybe we have to put up with difficulties from our family members and things, but it's worth it. Sometimes we don't want to go to work, right? But we do it because there's a payoff. And so here, if we can become convinced that Krishna is our well-wisher and that he's looking for our long-term benefit, and as long as our hearts stay hard and closed, we cannot realize this tremendous benefit. And so sometimes it may take reversals. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada was really attached to because he felt that Krishna did this to him. He said, Krishna made me a business failure. He was at times, there are a couple of different times, and he had a chance to become a very, very wealthy person in the pharmaceutical industry. And then something would just go wrong and he would lose everything. And so he said that there's this one verse in the Bhagavatam that says when Krishna has special mercy on someone who's really sincere and who wants to advance, but they're blocked by certain material attachments, then sometimes Krishna, if he sees that they're sincere enough and can withstand this, they will take those things away. He'll take those things away, things that they're attached to, and then that devotee will, because of their sincerity, will be able to open their heart more to Krishna. You won't do that if you can't do it. You can't take it. I mean, there's the story of the Avanti Brahmana in the Bhagavatam, who was that this person was the most miserly person ever. He said that he wouldn't even spend money on himself, right? Sometimes you get people like that. Usually you want money so you can enjoy it. And maybe you don't want to give it to anybody else. You want to keep it all to yourself. But somebody who's even more miserly won't even spend it on themselves. He was even suffering deprivation because he wouldn't spend his own money, even though he had plenty. And it was arranged through, Krishna and other higher forces that he loses. He was a Brahmin, but he was engaging in agricultural enterprises. He owned farms and these kind of stuff, and he was making money that way. And he said there are suddenly these different reversals started to happen. There would be a bad growing season. They would lose a crop. They would have thieves come and steal from them forcibly. He said that the other family members who were really suffering sometimes managed to separate some of his money from him by trickery. and eventually he had nothing. Because the government, got to him, I think, cut taxation and some different all these other things kind of conspired together, and he lost everything. And so you imagine somebody whose whole self-worth and the whole purpose in life is to have this nice bank balance, and they're broke. And so he said he lamented for the longest time, just thinking about how he lost everything and how it was terrible. And his family then rejected him, right? Now, at least before, they thought maybe he'll die and they could inherit something. Right? But now that's gone. Who do we care for you? You wouldn't do anything, and now you've lost everything. And so he had some previous connection with Krishna. And at one point, after lamenting for the longest time, he realized that this was Krishna's mercy. Because all this stuff was keeping his heart hard. All these things were keeping him away from Krishna. And so he realized that the worst possible thing that he could have imagined happening to him was his great fortune. And he opened his heart and he dedicated himself to Krishna's service. So it's a little scary. But Krishna does this in a very surgical way. And so when we're faced with reversals, it's a call, it's an opportunity to crack open the heart even further and to accept Krishna without so many conditions. So Krishna accepts us unconditionally. We have been doing all kinds of nonsense for who knows how many lifetimes, and Krishna has stayed with us. Okay? So now it's our turn to begin to remove our conditions. It's my opinion, we hear about devotional service and we hear about just wanting to please Krishna. This is the best way to do it. And so the way I look at it, we sign on the dotted line. Say, yes, Krishna, I surrender to you unconditionally, and I just want your service. But sneakily, before the contract gets put in the drawer, we add about 7,000 pages of addenda that says, okay, but Krishna, you're not going to do this, and this, okay? And then you have to do this, and this, right? I mean, we understand this, right? I'm signing on that, but you're going to do all these things that I want you to do, and you're not going to do these other things that you don't want me to do. And Krishna, he just kind of smiles, and, gives a little head, okay, put it in there. And then from then on, he's looking to cross things off those lists. And he does one of those things he's not supposed to do. And we go, yeah, Krishna, you're not supposed to do that. Remember that? But put this there. She says, yeah, I know. But I mean, what do you say? We're good, right? Can we just cross this one off the list? Right? Take one of the addendum off. Just the one. We say, okay, Krishna, just this one. But no more. Don't get any big ideas about changing any other parts of my conditional agreement. My conditional agreement to unconditional love. We're keeping all the other ones, right? And so, slowly Krishna checks these things off the list. And it gives us a chance to come closer, step by step, to real love and appreciation for Krishna. That opens the heart, even in the face. Where we have strong love, we oftentimes accept difficulty. My stepmother just passed away. My dad was taking care of her, 24 hours a day for a long time. And that wasn't necessarily his idea of a great life. But they had a connection, and he did that. And you have many people that do things like that. They many parents, they deal with things from their children that they wouldn't want to do, but they open their hearts. And they accept it. They accept the bad with the good. This is what it means to being full-hearted. And so when these things happen, it's a chance to further open the hard heart. We've softened it a little bit with humility and gratitude. And now we need to continue the process, because bhakti is a full-hearted process. And so Krishna, a little bit at a time, will help to pry it open, give us another chance to open the heart a little further, a little further. It's not becoming tougher. Tolerance. Yeah, Krishna, throw anything you want at me. I've got this. That's hard-heartedness. They say, oh, Krishna, this is killing me. But I open my heart and I somehow accept it. The grief is something that can open the heart. Despair and all these things, they can open the heart. And deepen the faith, and you end up feeling more secure. You feel more cared for, you feel more connected. So that's the more tolerant than the tree. So the lower than the grass does not mean you feel bad about yourself, right? You feel wonderful. You've received something so fantastic you can never repay it. So you feel small and wonderful. Because now I have a debt, a burden of debt I can never repay. Wonderful. But I feel small because I could never deserve this. But I have it. So it's a feeling of ecstasy. And tolerance doesn't mean being tougher than the tough. Coming, U.S. Marines, special forces. It's not like that. It's becoming softer. It's becoming opening the heart more, accepting Krishna with fewer conditions. That's what that means. So again, the heart becomes more soft. That's what's given you. So our reciprocation with Krishna, right? It also doesn't come from our strength and capabilities, but it should come from have some connection with our feeling of indebtedness and gratitude. And that kind of activity can be even more intense than an egoistic one. It says, okay, now I'm going to really advance in Krishna consciousness. I'm going to do all these things right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. You can do that, but you have to have that be in connection with your gratitude. How can I show my gratitude to Krishna? I can do this. I can do this. I can do that. Let me try. And realize that it's a drop in the bucket. That you will never reciprocate with Krishna. Because Krishna's constantly still doing stuff for you. So you'll always be a debtor. And Krishna will always be on your side. And appreciate whatever you give. But you'll be a debtor. Okay. So that second one's harder than the first one. When things are going okay, you can feel that gratitude, you can do that, you can begin to reciprocate, feel a little less nanaragaha or lack of attachment, enthusiasm, and become a little more enthusiastic. But then what happens when something terrible happens or something undesirable happens that throws us off? So that one's harder. The third one's hardest of all. And this also is a challenge to open the heart. The whole thing is about the softening the heart, opening the heart. That's all bhakti is. That's what it's doing. The more and more we advance, the more the heart becomes open, the more it becomes softer, the more there's a feeling of gratitude and indebtedness. Never a feeling of accomplishment. Never a feeling that I've increased my status. Never. It makes no sense in terms of reality. If we've received something that's priceless and been given to us for free, how can we claim any distinction for ourselves? How can we think we've become something? So the last thing, the third quality there in that all-important verse 3 of Shikshastakam is not wanting honor, respect, or appreciation for oneself, while at the same time easily giving those things to others, feeling that and giving that to others. And this is also a natural thing that happens from our feeling of perpetual indebtedness. Actually, it's natural that we do that. Right? To us, it seems very unnatural. Because what about me? Why shouldn't I want to be recognized if I'm doing something proper? Why shouldn't I be? I need that validation. And then other people, well, whatever. Are they really that great? Why should I give them that? But it actually follows naturally from that feeling of humble indebtedness. Let's think of it this way. If you are feeling that even your greatest efforts to reciprocate for Krishna do not even scratch the surface of the debt, then quite naturally you say, I haven't done anything. We hear that about the high-level devotees, the Madhikaris. They think they've never done anything for Krishna. Radharani feels that way. The greatest devotee who have never done anything for Krishna. Because it doesn't matter. I owe trillions of dollars and I'm throwing a few pennies there. It's nothing. It's nothing. Krishna's giving me so much more. That whatever I do, it adds up to zero. And I mean, if I don't know if there's limit functions, right, where something gets arbitrarily close to zero. Right? If you take a number and keep dividing it by 2, and the result that you divide by 2, and the result that you divide by, it gets smaller and smaller. It never becomes 0, but it becomes arbitrarily close to 0. The more times you go, the closer and closer it gets to 0. So that's our service is like that. Okay, it is something, right? And Krishna appreciates it greatly. Okay, but for us, from our point of view of having an infinite debt, it's arbitrarily close to 0. It's not worth considering. You say, I haven't done anything for Krishna, not to deserve what I've received. Nothing. It's nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's what the indebtedness causes you to say that, and it's true. And then when you look at somebody else, you can't feel their indebtedness. They have it, they should feel the same way. But you just see their service. And you think, wow, somebody's doing some service for Krishna. Maybe if we all do some service, it can matter. Krishna needs that. I can't reciprocate with Krishna, that maybe if there's help, and so then you think whatever little thing they do is great. You say, oh, look how much you're doing this service, you're doing that service. Because they feel their own indebtedness, so they think the same, they think it's nothing, and they look at you and think it's something. This is natural. If we have this indebtedness, it's a natural way to feel. The way that we usually feel is unnatural. Well, it's natural if we don't have the gratitude. It's a sign of the lack of gratitude. Okay? Now, the reason why this is so difficult, even though it's really based on the same feeling of indebtedness, is because generally as human beings, we find our self-worth by comparing ourselves to other human beings. We make that kind of assessment continuously. If you're in a certain group, where do you stand? You hope, some people may need to be the best. Others may just, hope not to be the worst. But that's how we find out that where does my value lie? How do I know I'm somebody or something that's worth something? By comparing myself with other human beings. So whatever pride is there, whatever lack of self-esteem is there, they're two sides of the same coin. That will come out most vigorously when you're in contact with other human beings. Because if someone is better, by your estimation, is better than you, that makes you feel a little less secure. And if you're better than some other buddy, you feel a little more secure. You're somebody. And that's hard to fight. It comes out. It comes out. And we see somebody else praise, and we say, oh, I'm not getting any praise. I'm not worth anything. Why are they getting praised? What about me? Because otherwise I feel useless. So for us, for devotees, the way that we deal with pride and low self-esteem, needing to find some self-worth, right? Pride means you're either you're trying to be somebody big, and you want to have a lot of worth, and low self-esteem means you think you don't have enough worth, you're not good enough, and they're two sides of the same coin. Right? And you can see how they can flip. If somebody's really prideful and they have something, they suffer some reversal, somebody comes along who's way better than them, they can have a low self-esteem. They can poof, lets the air out of their balloon. And on the other hand, if somebody really has low self-esteem and they get picked on enough, Eventually they'll be, no, I'm somebody, I'm a person too. I'm worthy of something too. They can't take it anymore. For devotees, our self-esteem comes from this amazing, inexplicable good fortune that Krishna loves everyone unconditionally. So we are who we are, but because Krishna sees value in us, tremendous value in us, and we can even perhaps persuasively argue that Krishna's vision may not be so clear here. Why does he love us? I mean, really? We can even accuse him of being kind of not very objective. But because Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the creator of everything, his subjective opinion overcomes objective reality. His subjective opinion stands, and objective reality can just forget about it. So for some reason, right, there's that Greek myth, the story of Pygmalion. I think that was the one play, what was it? Which My Fair Lady was a twist on that. But like this sculptor sculpted this, I think beautiful woman, and he fell in love with the sculpture. And so Krishna, he's created us, and maybe we're no greater than sculptures to the person, but Krishna has fallen in love with us, and it's genuine. And so what more do we need to feel valued and to feel worthwhile than the person who's created us, claims us as being his angsha, a part of himself, and is our well-wisher and wants our association? So what do we need to feel? Why are we feeling insecure? And then we know we can't deserve that. And plus he loves everybody else too. So how can we be prideful about that? Oh, Krishna loves me, not you. No, he loves everybody. So that's and plus we know we can't deserve that. Krishna's just funny that way somehow. Krishna's just funny that way. But he's genuine, so we have it. So there's we get our self-worth from Krishna's love, which also humbles us. So no pride, no low self-esteem. That's devotees. So we may think we're making progress in that way, but it's when we come into contact with other people that the latent low self-esteem or pride starts popping up to the surface. And so that's when we have to begin to meditate on this fact that Krishna has accepted us for no good reason, but he means it. And he's accepted everybody else. And he's tolerating all of us. Lifetimes of neglect. Even we may have been hostile to Krishna. We may have been fervent atheists, God doesn't exist. And he's sitting there in the heart and he's going, right. But he doesn't say anything. He doesn't jump out and say, hey, what do you mean? I'm here. Slap, and pop back in, You are wrong, pal. He doesn't do that. He just says, okay, well, wait. And he opens his heart and still keeps us, she's not only do they are they not interested in me, but they're even, saying I don't exist at all, Boy, talk about lack of gratitude there. Right? But no, he opens his heart. So opening our hearts to other people, right, is a deeper test. So first we're opening our heart, softening our heart towards Krishna, opening it when there's need for tolerance, and then we open it to other people because we're all Krishna's people. So a huge test we want to test our Krishna consciousness. If you have your thermometer, or we have our little COVID tests, right? The way we can check our temperature, and you'll see this in so many traditions, religious traditions and spiritual traditions, the different forms of the golden rule. Right? Because so much of it comes down, our advancement comes, how do we treat other people? If we're prideful, or we have low self-esteem, we won't treat people very well. But if we have the secure humility of knowing that we're loved by Krishna, we'll extend that to others. We will open our hearts, even though they have faults. Now, it doesn't mean that we treat everybody the same. Right? Somebody has a gun pointing at you, you might have to run. Okay? You say, hey, let me give you a hug, pal. I love you. It's like, no. Right? But what you don't do is say, what a terrible person. Right? You can understand that anything that's humanly possible, we also may have done or could possibly do in another situation. That they are at root the same thing we are, spirit souls beloved by Krishna. They may be way, way on the, away from the light and deep into darkness. We've been there before. And we still have some connections. So the ability to be able to open our hearts both to ourselves and others. You can't treat other people well if you can't also be somewhat forgiving of yourself. It doesn't mean that we say, oh, that's okay, I can do whatever I want because Krishna loves me. No. That's not being grateful. But at the same time, we realize that we have so many contaminations from so many lifetimes. And so we have to be able to look at that and recognize it. We want to be rid of it. We want to have good qualities. So we hope for those things. But if we ignore the darkness in ourselves, it'll just go under the surface and will haunt us. It'll cause us physical troubles. It'll cause us mental troubles. It will just wait to be bursting forth. So in some ways, we have to accept ourselves, warts and all, with a clear vision of what we would wish to be with Krishna's help. And we used to see that with others. So the really harsh, the knife of judgment really hurts us. We can evaluate and we can see how we can deal with another person in the best way, understanding where they're coming from. We can see ourselves clearly and see where the things that we're not proud of are and what we may be able to do. But we have to not have the knife of judgment that causes us to say, no, I'm not worthy. I'm not a worthy being, or these other people aren't worthy beings. They're evil. And that takes a real opening of the heart. It's an opening of the heart that Krishna has and that the great souls have. So it's another step in opening the heart even further. That's bhakti. So how do we treat others? It's a really powerful litmus test, or a powerful thermometer. How can we see ourselves and others with compassion and want and be their well-wishers, be our own well-wishers and be the well-wishers of others? And if we make progress in that way, that's a huge thing. That's got to be connected to this gratitude. It can't, like, humility is sometimes considered to be a good quality. Okay. And so I sometimes devotees will use this interesting terminology. that they took the humble position in a certain situation. Okay? Now that tells me right away that they weren't really humble, right? Otherwise, how did you take a humble position? You would just be humble, right? Now that can be a good thing to do if you're not feeling humble, and you try to act in a certain act in a humble way. That can be beneficial as long as you're saying, "Wow, I don't feel humble. Let me at least try to see what it feels like." Right? And maybe maybe the real feeling can come if I try to do it, not act on my pride. Okay? But what also may happen, and usually when people say I took the humble position, they're indicating that probably the other person was wrong, and they were extremely virtuous to act humble even though they didn't feel it, right? Because humility is a virtue, so I should be praised. This is praiseworthy. So that doesn't come from a reflection, hey, that I lack humility and I'd like to develop it. But no, hey, even when I'm wrong, I'm acting so beautifully. Therefore, I'm great. And so it's actually building pride, right? So if we act in a certain way, the Prabhupada, there was I heard for years it was Brahmananda that said this, but he claims it was his brother Gargamuni that did. So I don't know if they both agree on that or not. But one of them asked Prabhupada in the very early days, should I bow down to you even if I don't feel it? And Prabhupada said, yes, you do it, then you will feel it. Okay. So if they did that and start to feel like, hey, yeah, now I'm really humble because I'm bowing down, even if they didn't feel it, that doesn't help them anyway. That's fraudulent, and it actually hardens their hearts. But if they say, okay, let me do it. I don't really feel it, but I would like to feel it. I want to be appreciative enough. And so at least I act it. I move my body in that way. Because we know actually, right, if you smile, you'll feel better. Even though nothing changes, right? So sometimes just like the motions actually can help awaken the feelings. So if we do those things with a desire to awaken the real feelings, then it's useful. But just doing all the right things and saying all the right things when you don't feel it, and you're not trying to really feel it, thinking that because I'm acting perfectly, I'm great. Right? That's completely defeats the purpose. So everything has to come back to that feeling of gratitude, being humbled, wanting to reciprocate, wanting to open the heart. Bhakti is so complicated. We have all these different, huge volumes on the intricacies of bhakti, but it really comes down to something very simple. My god sister Yugala Rasa always likes to quote Prabhupada when he says that bhakti is so simple you could miss it. And I think it is quite that way. I think it's important that it may be good for us to learn all the intricacies and all the details. Some of us have that kind of brain. It's good for them to occupy your brain in some way. But if we don't understand also the simplicity of it, then I think we'll miss it in all the details. We won't be able to see the forest for the trees. So it comes down to really that simple. That feeling of gratitude and perpetual indebtedness. That makes us feel small and happy. Being able to open the heart to tolerate other things, be able to be good to people, opening our heart. It's really what it is. And Lord Chaitanya says, if you do those things, if we can come to that place where the heart is that open and those qualities are genuinely there, it becomes quite easy, he says, to awaken your love of Godhead. That's his own reflection as he's reciting those verses. All right, so we have come to the end of the little 5 sessions. We got maybe 5 minutes left. Are there questions? Usually people were like really popping up with questions in the middle, but we kind of come to the end here. We didn't. So if you have it, unmute yourself and let's speak instead of trying to read off the chat. Are there other questions or comments? We got 5 minutes left. Yeah, Sam.
Gary, what was the last thing you went over again? You said not craving like respect,
appreciation, or honor.
Okay, I
These
just
kinds of
wanted to
things.
make sure I got that.
Yeah. It's called that's actually called riding the waves of bhakti, Turanga Rangani. Where, because it says that when you advance in devotional service, you become attractive. And so you get some perks from that. People will, people will respect you, people will like you, people will praise you. And if that becomes, something that's dear to your heart, it's like riding on the waves of Bhakti instead of immersing yourself into the ocean of it. It's an obstacle. So we should always remember how we're permanently indebted, how we're simply lucky, right? We're completely lucky. That's all it is. We're fortunate beyond belief. So we're nothing, but we're that. So we can be joyful and humble, feel small and feel joyful. And so we don't need that. We say, there's nobody. I haven't done anything, right? Because if I were to be somebody, you have to be somebody who deserves this good fortune, and I'm not. So therefore, again, it's like approaches zero, right? It's like the little equation that arbitrarily, the limit function that gets arbitrarily close to zero. Whatever good qualities I may have, it's still not sufficient to attract Krishna. And it's by such a quantity difference that whatever qualities I have just basically are irrelevant. And if I do have good qualities, they probably come from Krishna's mercy anyway. So therefore, being respected or honored or appreciated, I don't need that for my self-esteem. And in fact, it just reminds me of, no, actually, it can be pleasant in the reverse way. Usually it's pleasant to our ego, but we say, oh, no, I'm not somebody who can attract Krishna. I'm not somebody who deserves Krishna. I'm not somebody who's done anything for Krishna. And that's also a feeling of ecstasy. But look, here's the other people. They're serving Krishna. Isn't it so nice? It's a natural effect of this feeling of perpetual indebtedness and good fortune. That Krishna causelessly loves us unconditionally and wants us to be part of his life. There's no way we could have even come up with it, but we're invited. And we don't deserve it, we're not worth it. But Krishna politely disagrees with reality. And he's allowed to do it because he creates reality. His subjective opinion is better than objective reality. He gets to say so. All these rascals are worth it, he says. These rascals are mine. And I love them. Right? Sometimes you tell a little kid to finally put down their little, raggedy teddy bear, right? It's not worth anything. It's all falling apart. Just no. It's fine. Right? So if we're the teddy bears, we have to feel really good. We don't feel like, hey, I'm a great teddy bear. No, you're falling apart. And you're only a teddy bear. Teddy bear can't be proud. So teddy bear can feel grateful. Right? Krishna loves this mess right here that I am. Wow, that is mind-blowing. So I should feel happy. That should be my self-esteem, and I should be humble at the same time, and indebted and want to return that, reciprocate that. That's the essence of bhakti. If you want to get to it, that's.
I just have to say that that's such a beautiful metaphor that you just gave. And the teddy bear. My little sister used to have this little blanket that she carried, and it was ragged and full of holes. And my mother used to try to, wash it sometimes, get it away out of her little hands and wash it. My sister would fight and refuse. So it's such a beautiful thing that, even though we're so raggedy and dirty, actually,
valued by Krishna somehow.
No, mine. It's mine.
It's mine. Yeah.
Paul. You just blew me
My
away.
rascal.
It's
my
mine. Let's go.
So. All right. Well, it's 12 o'clock, and appreciate all your time. Thanks for staying with me here through all 5 sessions. So quite a commitment, and yeah, really appreciate it. We're going to do something else in the summertime. 6th session 1. I think it's going to start somewhere in June or July, called "Taking Shelter of Krishna." So I think it will build on this a little bit. So maybe we'll see some of you then also.
Thank you. Deepest gratitude and perpetual indebtedness to you, Gary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So much.
You all.